welcome back to my channel, Beautiful Minutia. If you're new here, my name is Tiffany, and today I have a book haul for you. I went book shopping with my in real life booktube friend, Whitney, and we took our friend Kelly with us and our daughters, and it was a wonderful time. We went to MCKAY'S together, and we both brought in books for store credit, and we both went over what we brought in for store credit. Oh, it was such a fun time, and I meant to take some B-roll of the shopping experience and then was having such a good time that I forgot, and the only thing I got B-roll of was the Korean food that we got for lunch, which I just included for my vlog that week. So you get no B-roll, you just get a haul. I love to divide book categories up according to genre, so the timestamps are in the description so that way you can skip around to what you would like to see, because maybe you're not interested in middle grade, which I have the most of, or maybe you're not interested in classics, or whatever. I have classics, middle grade, nonfiction, and like one that I think is either, I don't know if it's general fiction or if it's more literary or if it's more fantasy. I'm not really sure. And that one actually is The Shadow of the Wind by Carlos Ruiz-Zafón, or Zafón. So as you can see, this was 50 cents and there were 2 copies, and Whitney and I both got a copy and we're gonna read it together. It's like for 50 cents, why not? I've heard that the writing's really beautiful in this, and I was just reading the back, and it is about a book that the main character is setting out to find, and when he does that, he finds out that someone has been destroying every copy of this book that he can find. And it's really interesting because I was looking at the back just now. It says it's Gabriel Garcia Marquez meets Umberto Eco meets Jorge Luis Borges for a sprawling magic show. That seems like a fascinating combination to me. I've actually only read Borges out of those 3, but I am reading my first Eco in September. So I'll read this probably after I read that. So it will be interesting to kind of compare those. I do have 100 Years of Solitude on my classics TBR for this year as well. But yeah, so that's very interesting. I'm kind of wondering, what does the combination of those 3 look like? I guess we'll find out. I think that the biggest stack here I have here is middle grade, because I actually gave my daughter a budget and was like, here you go, you can spend this much. And she did. She found a lot of really great books. So some of these are ones that I picked out. One of them is one that we intend to read for school, but most of these are her books that she's really excited about. The one that she's already reading is The Great Brain Robbery. This is book 2 in the Train to Impossible Places series, which she loves so much. She really loved that book, and she had the next 2 books on her wish list for her birthday, but she found this one there and she was really excited. And as you can see, she's already about halfway through. She also found this book, The Grimm Legacy, which I've never heard of before. Has some ties to Grimm fairy tales, I think. So she thought it was cool. I love the cover. I think it's very pretty. She also found one of her favorite books of all time, which is Peter and the Starcatchers. This is actually a series, and I think the first couple of books in the series are a prequel to Peter Pan, and then the final one jumps forward in time to maybe like Wendy's mother or something like that, but the rest of this is long before Wendy, and it's like, Tinkerbell, and I think like her origins and Peter and him first meeting Captain Hook, and all of that kind of stuff. So yeah, she's really excited to have this one because it's one she used to get from the library all the time and read over and over and over again. And if you've been with my channel since the beginning, one of the first videos that I put out was middle grade fantasy recommendations from my daughter, and this was one of the series that she recommended. Another author that my daughter really loves is Catherine Lasky, who wrote the Guardians of Ga'Hoole series and also the Tangled in Time series, both of which she's loved. This one's called Hawksmaid, and it's like a retelling of Robin Hood and Maid Marian. So that sounds like that will be a ton of fun. Like most kids her age, my daughter really loves Mr. Limoncello's library, and she found a book of his Home Sweet Motel, which she said there was like a sample chapter in the back of one of the Mr. Limoncello library books. So she was really excited to find this one. She also got the next book in a series. I can't remember what the series is called. This book is called If You're Reading This, It's Too Late. And the first book in the series is called The Name of This Book is Secret by pseudonymous Bosch. and I haven't read these. My daughter really, really, really likes this series, or at least likes the first book so far. And the cover and the title and the pen name and all that really gives me Lemony Snicket vibes. I don't know if it's really similar or not though. The last couple of middle grades are ones that I picked out. One of them is Words on Fire by Jennifer A. Nielsen, and I have read a couple of her books. I really enjoyed, I can't remember, I think it's A Night Divided, yeah, with the Berlin Wall going up, and it's historical fiction. This one is about Lithuania, and the Soviet Union comes in under Stalin, is doing some not nice stuff. I think it's set around the same time as Ruta Sepetty's Between Shades of Grey, I think. So yeah, I have not read this one, but it's been the one of hers that I'm the most excited to read because I really enjoy reading about that time period and that setting. So I'm really excited that I found this one. I also found a Pam Munoz-Ryan book that I've never even heard of called Riding Freedom, and the illustrations are by Brian Selznick. His illustrations are my favorite ever. I mean, just look at the cover. It's beautiful. But he does like a lot of like pencil drawings and stuff. If you have read either Wonderstruck or I think it's like The Invention of Hugo Cabret are like the two of his that we've read and loved. But his illustrations are phenomenal. And I figured my daughter would like this one because I would say that it involves a horse. And lastly, one that we got for school is Carry On, Mr. Bowditch, or maybe it's Bowditch, by Jean Lee Latham. This is a suggested free read for Ambleside Online, so I picked it up because it kind of goes along with the time period of history that we're studying this year. And also, it has a Newbery Medal on it, which I kind of didn't pick up on that until right now, but it does. I have a couple of nonfiction here as well. Some of these are actually middle grade ones for my daughter. This one is supposed to be like young adults or middle grade, but I've never read it and I'm just really interested in it because I've heard good things about it. So I will read it. It's not necessarily for school this year, but maybe in the future. Red Scarf Girl, a memoir of the Cultural Revolution by Ji Li Jiang. And it looks really, really good. I really want to read this one. Next, my daughter is picking out some biographies of some famous Americans that she wants to read about. And Marie Curie was one of her options and not the one that was a first pick for her. But I picked this up in case she might be interested in reading it at some point during the school year because it was only 75 cents. Next, I got Many Thousand Gone, which is the African Americans from Slavery to Freedom by Virginia Hamilton. I've read another Virginia Hamilton book that I think is about like folklore and stuff, like African folklore or something like that, something like that. But anyways, I really thought that that book was really well done. So I got this one. It's only 25 cents. We will be going through, I think, World War I in American history this year. So this will fit in really well with that. We have a really amazing book that we're using that has biographies of Black people that were instrumental in the freedom of the United States through the Revolutionary War, all the way up through like the Civil War. So this has stuff where it has different like little biographies of different people who are instrumentals, and they're all like really, really short. Like that's it, that's one chapter. But then it's also got stuff here with like little ads for what was in the newspaper for runaway slaves and different things like that. So it has a whole plethora of different things in it, but I thought it would be like a really good addition and resource to have on hand as we're studying the Civil War. The last two I find quite ironic because they're kind of related unintentionally. Both of them are more for me. This first one will probably be for Claire at school at some point. I would see that this would probably be assigned. I didn't check, but it probably is. Rules of Civility and Other Writings and Speeches by George Washington. I can't believe this is 25 cents. And it's like a Barnes & Noble edition. It's got like speckled edges and ribbon bookmarker. Really nice condition. I'm like, she'll probably have to read this at some point. But ironically, I didn't realize that the other nonfiction I got is Never Caught, which is the story of Ona Judge, who is one of George Washington's slaves, and the story of her escaping and all that kind of stuff. So I didn't realize that the two adult books that I picked up are actually accidentally interrelated. Moving on to classics, which is always my favorites of the books that I end up finding and sharing with you. This is a pretty diverse selection because we've got some French literature, some American literature, some Irish literature, some Victorian literature, and even some Korean literature. So we're kind of all over the place, but I'm really excited. So first one I have here is a Stendhal book called The Red and the Black. I've heard of this book specifically before. I didn't realize until I read the back that Stendhal is a pen name for Marie Henry Bale. I didn't know that. I thought Stendhal was a man. And I think that I've seen Stendhal referenced in a couple of things that I've read recently. I want to say Borges, maybe also Posthumous Memoirs of Ross Kubas. I don't know if it was both or just one of those. Dia would know because Dia read both of those with me. But this is a psychological novel. After the person who wrote this read a newspaper account of a trial of a young man charged with attempted murder of a married woman. It says it's set in a small provincial town and in Paris. The book tells the story of Julian Sorel, a handsome and brilliant young tutor who was both hero and villain. Considered one of literature's most complex characters, Sorel is cold, opportunistic, and uncompromising with others, including his influential mistress, as he seeks to fulfill his lust for power and wealth. Yet he is hopelessly victimized by his own romantic soul and by the military and religious forces, the red and the black, that prevail in all of France. So, I was very, very intrigued by this. The next book I found is actually a Willa Cather book, and I am super pumped about that because we read Oh Pioneers with my Patreon this year, and out of the books that we've read so far for my Patreon group reads, that has been my favorite one. I just really jive with her writing. I love her writing so much. So this is The Song of the Lark. This is actually also part of the Great Plains trilogy that Oh Pioneers is also part of, and also My Antonia, if you've heard of that one as well. These books are not really interconnected though, like in terms of people or plot or anything like that. They just kind of have the same kind of setting, I think, of like immigrants who are pioneers in like the Midwest area or Great Plains area actually of the United States. I think that that's the connecting factor between the three of them, but they're not, like, you don't have to read them in order. They're not interconnected in that way. I'm really excited to have this one because I do own My Antonia as well, but I didn't own this one. Next, I found The Complete Prose of Pushkin, and this is a Pavir and Volokonsky translation, which I've never read their translation of Pushkin. The only Pushkin that I have read so far is Eugene Onegin, which is not in this book. This book has other things in it because, like I said, it's prose, so it's like his novels and stories and those kinds of things, as opposed to his plays and poetry and that kind of stuff. So it is different in that regard, but I was really excited to find it. This is the most expensive book that I bought because it's $8.50, which is generally more than I would pay for a used book. But first of all, it looks like it's in brand new condition. And second of all, I was like, when am I gonna find this book again? When do I ever see Pushkin just laying around, even at a place like MCKAY'S or secondhand bookstores or, you know, whatever, not just thrift stores, even stores like Half Price Books and stuff. I never see Pushkin. That's not a common thing to see. See Tolstoy, sure. Dostoevsky, sure. Pushkin, not usually. So I had to snatch it. Next, this is Una Made Me Do It story. I got Dubliners by James Joyce. James Joyce is an author that I said I would probably never read. And then I watched Codex Cantina's video on what you should know before reading Dubliners. And I'm like, I think I'm convinced. And I know that Una and Crypto are reading Ulysses this summer, and I've talked to Una a little bit about it. And he's like, yeah, I get why people are, you know, intimidated by Ulysses. It's more readable than I thought, but trust me, Dubliners is the perfect place to start with James Joyce. It's not nearly as scary as Ulysses or some of his other stuff because they're short stories based in Ireland. So I got it, and it was only $1. So, you know, there's really no harm, but we'll see. We'll see when I get to this one. I'm really intrigued, thanks to Una. Next up, I got an Anne Radcliffe book, A Sicilian Romance, and I read Mysteries of Udolpho last year, and it was one of my favorite books of the year, so I know that I really love her writing style. I also own The Italian by Anne Radcliffe as well, which I haven't gotten to yet. So I don't know if they're also kind of this kind of like suspenseful kind of a story like Mysteries of Udolpho, but I'm fine if they're not, because the first chunk of Mysteries of Udolpho is not suspenseful at all. That's mostly travel stories, and it's very picturesque and beautiful writing that I just like sink into. So if this ends up being more of that than the suspenseful like last half or so of Mysteries of Udolpho, then I'm okay with that too. I got a couple of Elizabeth Gaskell's. First of all, I'm really excited about this because I got the Cranford Chronicles, and I didn't realize that this is more than one thing. I was like, oh, is that just another title for Cranford? But no, there are several stories that take place, I guess, in Cranford. There's Mr. Harris's Confessions, which is a shorter story, and also My Lady Ludlow, and then Cranford's in the middle. So I'm really excited about that. The only Gaskell that I have read so far is North and South, and I don't love it, but I do like her writing, and so I want to read more of hers. I own Wives and Daughters, I own Mary Barton, now I own this one, and then I also now own Cousin Phyllis and Other Stories, which is a short story collection. So I actually really love these Oxford World editions. I love the covers because they always have really pretty art on them, and then I like the spines too. So I actually have a couple of other books in this edition, and I think I might even have another Gaskell in this edition as well. But this Radcliffe that I picked up is the same edition, and so is the Italian that I have also. Last but not least, the book that I can't believe that I found, because I've never seen this anywhere. The Nine Cloud Dream by Kim Man-jung. So this is a Korean classic. This is not just like a Korean book that is well known or, you know, whatever, because nowadays a lot of the books, if you're looking for translated Korean works that are being taught in schools or, you know, whatever that they're prioritizing as literature in Korea, a lot of them are not like super, super old. And I've really wanted to go back and read some older Korean things, but there's a lot of things that aren't translated. This is written in 17th century Korea. So I'm really excited that I found this. I think I've had this like on my Amazon wish list for a really long time. So I'm really excited. I don't really know what it's about. I remember Yoon from Dr. Yoon read this, and I watched her video on it, and I feel like she didn't love it. So I hope that I do, but I don't even remember what it's about, and that's okay. I don't really need to know. I don't mind going into books without knowing anything about them at all because I hate being spoiled, which is why I never read the introductions to classics, because they assume that either you don't care about being spoiled or you've already read it. And just because a book has been around for hundreds of years doesn't mean that people have read it, because people are not hundreds of years old. They haven't had time to read all the books yet. So anyways, I'm really excited about this one. So that is my MCKAY'S book haul. I feel like I did really, really well. Got a lot of things I'm really excited about, but unfortunately I did go in there with a list of things that I wanted specifically to find for our homeschool year, and Carry On Mr. Bowditch was the only one that I found. So that's really unfortunate, but that's okay. We're gonna focus on the positives, that there are lots of cool new books to put on my shelf and lots of cool new books to put on my daughter's shelf, because I think my middle grade stack was the biggest. She really made out like a bandit this time. I'd love to hear from you in the comments down below. Are there any books on this list that you think I should prioritize, that you have read or you're intrigued by? You hear it and you're like, oh, that sounds interesting. Let me know in the comments down below if there's any that you'd like to see me read sooner rather than later. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, please hit like and also subscribe so you can continue to see more bookish content from me, and I will see you again next time.